Coach Z, coming into year 11, what are the expectations for the Spartans as we roll on into the season?
Yeah, I think probably like it's always been our goal, as we kind of state our goals with our team, is win the conference, win a national playoff game, and be better than we were last year. You know, we're coming off a 7-3 record last year, 6-2 in the conference, and played the conference championship game in Game 10, but was beaten pretty soundly by Whitburg in Game 10.
All right, we got a lot of seniors coming back, a lot of players that have made plays, been on the field, a lot of games for this Spartan team. Talk a little bit about those players and what they can bring for leadership and on the field.
We have 19 returning seniors, and that's our biggest group since 2015. And of those 19 returning seniors, we have potentially 15 or 16 starters. And I think you win almost all your conference games based on how old you are. And one of the things we're always trying to do is get as many juniors and seniors on the field. We've had some really good playmakers on those 19 seniors, and we've also had some guys who've provided depth. And when you talk about leadership, I always think about leadership being in a guy that is a good teammate, understands that his role might not be as a starter, but could be as a backup or a special team player, or a guy that's a substitutional or situational starter. So this group, I think, has really been frustrated at being second and third the last 2 years, where we thought we had enough talent to win the league.
What do you look for in an incoming freshman? Maybe someone you expect to play right away. What do you look for him interacting with the already established players? How does he interact with the other newcomers?
I think the most important part about that is, first of all, I'll go back and just tell you, his athletic ability obviously is going to be a main ingredient whether he can play or not, because we are a very good football team. We do have a lot of good players on our team, and they're very athletic. One of the things we try to highlight on our football team is get as many athletics people in positions as we can. We've gotten a little bit smaller on defense over the years as we've taken safeties, moved them down to outside backers, moved outside backers to edge players, moved edge players to inside. And we just think in Division III recruiting, that helps you develop depth on that part. And then, you know, as you played for me, we're really trying to get our playmakers on the field offensively. This might be as comparable a group and playmakers offensively as we had since 2011, when we were top 3 team in the country offensively and had a lot of good players. We had one guy to have 100 and some catches, another guy had 70 catches, another guy had 50 catches. We were able to spread the field, and people weren't able to double a lot of folks on us in that time. So that part, first of all, is athleticism. Number 2, offensive and defensive linemen at our level is the most difficult position to recruit, in that you can't get enough of them. So, man, you'd like to get a guy 6'2", 285, whatever it is, because you got to get some size in those positions, and that's a very difficult deal on Division III, because the real good players are getting offered so money. So to answer your question, athleticism 1, size 2, and then in the recruiting process, holy cow, you're trying to do as much information seeking as you can about how does a kid get along with teachers, what do the janitors think about him, what does the coaches think about him, and so there's a lot that goes into that, and then hopefully when they get into us, we can mold a little bit about that culture, about how they interact. But we had this exact conversation this morning on our staff meeting. I said, what develops the best culture is winning. When you win, that develops the best culture, so hopefully we can continue in that vein.
So you mentioned your staff. You have a couple new guys this year. Would you like to talk about them? Maybe
I would. What a change it's going to be. For the first time in 45 years, I'm not going to coach a position. So I'm not going to be the quarterback coach or the coordinator this fall. We'll see how that does with my gray hairs and my balding. But we hired Dan Clark, who coming to us from Stephen F. Austin as our offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. But Dan, prior to being at Stephen F. Austin, which is in Texas, he was at Illinois State for 5 years and coached the national championship game against North Dakota State, and had tremendous success at Illinois State. Prior to that, he was the tight end tackle coach at the University of Northern Iowa for 4 years, and their success they had, I think all 4 years made national playoffs, 1AA. Prior to that, he GA'd at the University of Iowa under Coach Ferentz, and helped with the offensive line down there. Great experience, a very solid program and how they approach things. And then prior to that was very successful junior college coach where they won a couple national titles. And then prior to that, he played at Simpson. And as a matter of fact, he was coaching Simpson when they beat us in '94 at UW-Whitewater, and we were the number 2 team in the country. They came over and beat us 38-35. So I followed Dan's career a long, long time. He's an Iowa kid. I guess he's not a kid anymore, but an Iowa coach who's coming back to coach. He's going to bring some different ideas and some different thoughts. And then we hired a quarterback coach, Evan Eastburn, who will be replacing me at coaching quarterbacks. He's got a great throwing pedigree, Southwest State, Minnesota, Black Hill State out in South Dakota out there, and then he was most recently at Lindenwood Bellevue. The things that you always worry about with new coaches is when the bullets start flying, putting everything together. So Evan didn't join us here till the summer. Dan had a spring with us, which will really help. And then my carryovers, Coach Hookstead coaching wideouts will really be important, and Coach Evans coaching running backs. And then Connor Fackley, our GA, who's been with me for 5 years as a player and a coach, and then Matt Levan, who's been with me for 4 years as a coach and 4 years as a player. So there's some stability there, but yet I'm really excited about the new ideas they're going to infuse into our offense.
Looking at the offense and defense, could you spot one player that maybe on each side of the ball that is going to be huge for your team's success this year?
I think on both we'll have more than one, but obviously the kind of the star, if that's the right word, because we have a number of them, but would be Dwayne Allen, our running back, who I've sent out a lot of things about him being a potential All-American. What Dwayne has to do this year is stay healthy for 10 games and have 250 to 300 carries in the season, because if he does, we'll win the championship, no question in my mind. He's the most explosive and dynamic running back in the league. He's done the best job he's been since he's been here, getting himself physically ready. He's stronger than he's ever been. He's faster than he's ever been. And I think he really understands he'd like to get a chance at the next level. Holy cow, how tough is that? We've had 11 guys that had those opportunities, and it's tough. But he could be one of those guys if he has a phenomenal year. That would be a guy I would say, you could say that we're counting on that guy to have that kind of year. But I would be silly not to mention that our quarterback started 10 games last year, coming back for his junior, Sean Duffy. He's got to have a big year for us to be as good as we can be. And then we have throw out 6-7 receivers who are really, really good. And so if each of those guys can contribute with big plays and make us hard to defend across the field, we'll really be good. Return a starting tight end, Adam Rothhaus, is going to be an important ingredient in that. And then, of course, our 2 returning offensive line. That's where we had the graduation issues in the offensive lineman. Mike Lewis, who is 6'5", 295 pounds, and we've had NFL scouts come with him. He has to be dominating. And then we're moving Nick Brambilet from offensive guard to center. And we had a 33-game starter, Kyle Stefanowski, and that's hard to replace. So those 2 guys have to have above average years, good to great years for us to be as good as we want. On defense, we have, if you'd ask me again, who's the star that I would highlight, it's Blaze Barista, a 3-year starter for us, been nominated to the Good Works Team, AFCA. He's played safety for us, he's played corner, but he's really physically matured into his body. He's stronger and bigger than he was when he came in, obviously, but he's probably put on about 20 pounds, probably gained an inch, and then just got a lot of experience back there. Just played 21 games for us, and just, that you can't measure that when you get to guys that are a senior. And then you got a couple backers who I think are outstanding. Chad Marsh, who's a great run stopper, playing our inside backer. We've got Freddie Walton, who's in his junior year, who's played some football for us. And then we got Marshawn Crowder. I don't know where we play him. I don't know what you call him. He lines up at DN. He lines up at outside backer. He lines up in a safety position, screwing down into the box. But, he's just a marvelous, marvelous athlete. We continue, our coaching staff does a great job of moving him around to put him in a position to be successful. And then we got Kyle Marsh in our defensive line. and we got Danny Petrill on our defensive line. Both those guys started for us last year. And then we got some edge players we're trying to figure out. I would want to mention Quincy Topu came to us as a wide receiver 4 years ago, and now is playing defensive end, and he's really, I think, finally grown into that position. I'm expecting him to have a great year. He could be a pass rushing force for us. And we have a number of new guys that have come in, but it's so hard for me to identify those guys till I get them on the field. But we had 5 midterm transfers last winter that are going to make an impact. One of them is Colton Anderson, our safety. He'll be a starter for us. One is Elliot Pipkin, a wide receiver who's going to be a starter for us. A name familiar to you and a lot of the kids in the area is Cordell Stilmunkus, who went to University of Iowa as a walk-on. He is a marvelous athlete, fast, strong. He preferred walk-on at Iowa. He wasn't able to perform with us in spring because he had a bad back from some lifting accident in Iowa, but he's a guy that I think is going to be a really force that nobody knows about yet. We just haven't been able to practice him, so we'll see. And another wide receiver, Master Paul from Arizona Western, who is phenomenal, change of direction guy to play our slot. So we really feel like our recruiting started last January for us. Those guys, we don't get in any 1 year. The last time we got those guys like that was 2011, when we got 3 transfers that all ended up being All-Americans for us. I don't know if they're going to duplicate that. That is difficult, but holy simoly, those are really good players for us to get. And then I don't want to leave out the best punter in the country, in my opinion. I'm not sure I've ever pronounced his name right, but Andy Vunovich is our punter, and I think he's going to handle our extra point and field goal duties. He came to us at 6'2" and a shade and about 205. He left us last spring, grew an inch. He's 6'3" and he's 225 pounds. He's got the third best vertical jump on our team. He's got the 5th best 40. His lifts put him in the top 5 on our team. He is a marvelous athlete. He should be a field changer for us in punting, and I think we can do some things with the fake game with him. He's just a marvelous athlete. So I think he's going to flip the field for us in a lot of different areas, and we just want to make sure that we give him a chance, because he's going to be 3 years from now, he'll be punting for somebody in the NFL. Mm-hmm. I just tell him that. I've had 2 guys that punted in the NFL for us at different schools, and he is more progressed at this time in his career than those folks were.
All right, just a final message to the players out there watching this video, or the fans.
I do want to stop because I'm going to talk a little bit about our schedule.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
I really do, because since you've played for us and you understand how competitive I try to get our schedule to be, I've always played a competitive non-conference schedule, somebody being a nationally ranked team from the WIC or the MIAC team. This year it's UW Whitewater there. They're coming off a 13-1 season last year, and they'll be as good as they always are. That'll be a really difficult challenge for us. Then our second game is our first home game against Pacific University. That ends our 6-year run with Pacific. It's been as close a series as I've ever played with anybody. It's always been decided by a 1, 2, or 3-point differential, and always at the end of the game. We've been lucky to be in the top end of that 5 times in a row. I would assume those guys, holy balls, they'd like to win
right.
that series. And then we start, which I think is probably the most competitive aspect of our schedule. We have Simpson at home, then we go Wartburg, Co, Central. So the top 4 teams from last year we play back to back to back to back. And not only do I do that next year, for the next 3 years I play Wartburg, Co, and Central consecutively. So got to stay healthy during that string, right? Number 1. Number 2, got to understand that what you did the previous Saturday might not be the next on the Saturday coming up. So you got to get better as that thing goes along, and you got to prepare yourself for that grind, because that's going to be a grind. We don't have a bye or anything else. So those first 6 weeks of the season, it'll dictate what's going to happen the last 4, because if we don't do well against those teams in the early part of the schedule, it won't matter because we'll be eliminated from the playoff race. So I would tell you it's going to be, we got to hit the floor running. And of course, you know, UW where that first game, can't get too concerned about what might happen. You got to play and still getting better because you aren't going to play your best game. Your first game just ain't going to happen. What we want to do is play a competitive game, get in there and get a chance to, maybe we can upset them, maybe we can do some things that way, but we got to be looking at the next 5 too, because our schedule determines that we have to do that.
As you look at the schedule, what about this preseason schedule? Kind of
Oh God, I got to say that to you because we don't. This is the smallest fall camp I've ever had at University of Dubuque is 11 days. That means 11 days with no conflicts from new student orientation and/or classes and/or whatever might be going on. This year we have 4 days, and they're not all conflict-free because we have an academic program going on our first Saturday and Sunday in the camp. So this year I get 2 days of fall camp, which is really difficult. Not difficult on the coaches, but difficult on the new kids trying to catch up to speed, what you got to do, and difficult. We always thought fall camp wasn't so much about the physical aspect, but it's about the mental aspect of being nothing but football for 24 hours a day for 11 days, which would allow you to be in a preparation. This year we're going to get 2 for some, 4 for others, but that's the max. Now, just in your meeting time, it creates conflict because we all know they're here as a student and we know they have to do those things. And so you got to shrink on our end to allow them to meet the academic needs. And it is difficult, very difficult. So we're kind of on a, I tell both of you, we're not really sure how that's all going to work yet. We got it planned out to the minute, but holy cow, it's an unknown. And so it's going to be really interesting for us. Now to the next question. What would I tell our players? You know, this is an interesting group. I said this to the staff this morning. I really feel that our juniors and seniors are going to carry the charge. I think they're disappointed that we've come close but not been able to get the ring or put the cigar in, whatever those cliches are. So we'd like to think that this year we can get over that hump. Getting over that hump means beating a Wartburg on the road, a Central on the road. Hey, those are things that haven't happened very often in our school's history. So those are important landmarks, if that's the right word. But I think our juniors and seniors, and to a great extent our sophomores, understand the difficulty of what I just said. What we want to happen with our newcomers is just get them acclimated and get them to be involved. So many of them come with a thought that I'm going to play as a freshman. Some will, very few will, but to get them to make sure that they're part of the team culture, part of what needs to take place, figure out how you do things right, and then try not to be a lost puppy on the practice field, which is always interesting for new guys coming in. But if you'd ask me, I'm really optimistic. I wish our schedule had a little bit more breaks in it. I really do. That's a factor that I can't control because if you get nicked up in that stretch, you're going to have some issues. And so that part's a part that I think about often, what I need to do on the front end about trying to eliminate as much injuries as I can during our practices. But you're going to go play UW Whitewater off the bat. I mean, you're going to have to play your best game to have a shot. So it'll be interesting how that all pans out.
All right, thanks, Coach, for your time.
Very welcome.